holy smokes, there was a heated conversation between Donald Trump and Zelensky on Friday. We're going to dive into that, ladies and gentlemen. Quite an interesting conversation. And despite what you may believe, we have to ask this question, like, is Donald Trump in the right with what he said about Ukraine is not going to be able to win this war? Some people may have issues with the decorum that Donald Trump used, but the reality is, I think that Zelensky's time is up. But the conversation didn't start that way. Let's show how the conversation actually began, because it began rather peaceful, despite what people may believe. Let's go ahead and get into this here.
Well, thank you very much. It's an honor to have President Zelensky of Ukraine. And we've been working very hard, very close. So we've actually known each other for a long time. We've been dealing with each other for a long time, and very well. We had a little negotiation spat, but that worked out great. I think for both countries, I think for the world, actually, beyond both countries. And we have something that is a very fair deal. And we look forward to getting in and digging and working and getting some of the rare earth. But it means we're going to be inside, and it's a big commitment from the United States, and we appreciate working with you very much. And we will continue to do that. We have had some very good discussions with Russia. I spoke with President Putin, and we're going to try and bring this to a close. It's something that you want and that he wants. We have to negotiate a deal. But we've started the confines of a deal, and I think something can happen. The big thing is the number of soldiers, mostly at this point, but soldiers being killed. You're losing thousands of soldiers. So on both sides, we're losing a lot of soldiers, and we want to see it stop. And we want to see the money get put to different kinds of use, like rebuilding. And we're going to be working very hard. But we've had a lot of very good conversations. I will say, until we came along, the Biden administration didn't speak to Russia whatsoever. They didn't speak to anybody. They just allowed this to continue. And I will say that, I'll say in front of you, you've heard me say it 1,000 times, if I were president, this war would have never happened. We would have had a deal negotiated for you without having to go through what you've gone through. But your soldiers have been unbelievably brave. We've given them great equipment, but somebody has to use the equipment. They've been unbelievably brave.
So this is the part of the conversation that a lot of people did not see. If you watch the entire interview, then you would see this part of that discussion. Most of the videos that you are seeing on X and other social media platforms, they're not showing you how the conversation began. This is why I always say, when you see those clips on X, make sure to go back to the full conversation so you can see what happened before the clip that is posted on social media. So it actually started off pretty respectful, right? Okay, let's go on a little bit more. And then we'll get to the part where things definitely took a turn for the worse.
And we give them great credit. This was supposed to be over very quickly. And here we are 3 years later. So I give tremendous credit to your generals and your soldiers and yourself, in the sense that it's been very hard fighting, very tough fighting. They're great fighters. And you have to be very proud of them from that standpoint. But now we want to get it over with. It's enough, right? We want to get it over with. So it's an honor to have you here. Thank you very much for coming. We're going to sign the agreement at the conference in the East Room in a little while, right after lunch. And we'll be having lunch together. We're also discussing some other things. And we appreciate everybody being here. It's somewhat of an exciting moment, but the really exciting moment is when they stop the shooting and we end up with a deal. And I think we're fairly close to getting that, and an honor to have you. And please, I'd like to say something.
No.
So, again, that seems very civil to me, right? And I know a lot of people, like, again, if you're new to this channel, I didn't support Donald Trump. I didn't support Kamala Harris. I voted for Jill Stein. But I think a lot of people that do have somewhat of that Trump derangement syndrome, they are purposefully ignoring this part of the discussion. And I mean, like, commentators. I don't mean like just everyday, people on X. So that part is important for you to see. Okay. Now we'll get into what a little bit of what Zelensky says here, right?
Thank you so much, Mr. President. Thank you for the invitation. And really, I hope that this first document, will be a first step to real security guarantees for Ukraine, our people, our children. I really count on it. And of course, we count that America will not stop support. Really, for us, it's very important to support and to continue it. I want to discuss it with details further during our conversation, and of course, the infrastructure or security guarantees, because.
And then he gets into a lot of hoopla, right? So you guys know how these conversations go. So again, pretty civil. From what I could capture, Emily Jasinski, she said this. I thought this was an interesting one of those times where you absolutely have to watch the full meeting and not just the highlights. Otherwise, you'll be lost. Love him or hate him, Trump started the meeting by praising Ukraine. Before Zelensky turned to him, Vance started by saying Russia destroyed Ukraine. Zelensky decided to turn the meeting into a public spat. Maybe you think he was right to go on the offense, but he was absolutely not ambushed. So that's Emily from Breaking Point. So that's a very important part for people to see and understand. And I told you guys before, the same way that you see propaganda on corporate media, you also see propaganda on social media as well sometimes, where people will purposefully exclude part of the conversation to make the opposition look even worse or to make their side look good. Now, so again, you can disagree with the way that conversation began to unfold, but the reality is if you ignore the way the conversation began, you are missing an important part of that story. Now we're going to get to the moment where things definitely got heated, and you guys will have to excuse me. I do have a wicked cold. So if my voice sounds a little muffled, that's why. But this is when things start to change. This statement here by J.D. Vance, and the response to that is Zelensky kind of going on the offensive. So it's important that people see this part. Check this out.
For 4 years in the United States of America, we had a president who stood up at press conferences and talked tough about Vladimir Putin, and then Putin invaded Ukraine and destroyed a significant chunk of the country. The path to peace and the path to prosperity is maybe engaging in diplomacy. We tried the pathway of Joe Biden of thumping our chest and pretending that the President of the United States' words mattered more than the President of the United States' actions. What makes America a good country is America engaging in diplomacy. That's what President Trump is doing.
Can I ask you?
Sure.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So he occupied our parts, big parts of Ukraine, part of East and Crimea. So he occupied it on 2014. So during a lot of years, so I'm not speaking about just Biden, but those time was Obama, then President Obama, then President Trump, then.
Pause here for a second. So the part of this conversation that is missing from this discussion is, of course, like 2014. We've discussed it before on this show multiple times. You got to remember that was NATO. That was the coup that was done by NATO. So again, we keep asking like who really wanted this war. NATO and the United States government wanted this war. So when you go back to 2014, yeah, we can start with that part. But Zelensky isn't going to mention that. So that's important for context for people to understand. So this is where things start to get a little bit more on the defensive.
President Biden, now President Trump, and God bless, now President Trump will stop him. But during 2014, nobody stopped him. He just occupied and took. He killed people. You know what the contact
2015.
2014
2014.
and 2014.
2014.
Yeah. So
I was not here.
Yeah, but
So that part was kind of funny when Donald Trump goes, look, 2014, I wasn't here. Which, I mean, is true. Like that would have been under Barack Obama. This goes to show you how long this has been an issue. It didn't just start under Joe Biden, right? Like, so this goes all the way back to Barack Obama. And for those who are not well versed in foreign policy, one of the things I do just want to mention to you is that the reason why this was an issue is because after the fall of the Berlin Wall, there was an agreement that none of these other countries, that NATO would not expand closer to Russia. That was the agreement that was made, that was accepted on the table. So this coup that was implemented by NATO in 2014, that was NATO, of course, going against their own agreement. So that part, again, is important to know. I think that Trump and JD Vance probably should have, that was a good opportunity for them to add that piece of information that I just gave you. But let's continue.
Right.
Yes, but during 2014 till 2022, yeah, the situation the same. The people have been dying on the contact line. Nobody stopped him. You know that we had conversations with him, a lot of conversation, my bilateral conversation, and we signed with him, me, like a new president. In 2019, I signed with him the deal. I signed with him, Macron and Merkel, we signed ceasefire. Ceasefire. All of them told me that he will never go. We signed him with gas contract. Yes, but after that, he broken this ceasefire. He killed our people and he didn't exchange prisoners. We signed the exchange of prisoners, but he didn't do it. What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
Okay, so this is where the tide starts to turn, right? When he says, what kind of diplomacy do you mean? Right. So this is actually where things start to shift.
Talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the president for trying to bring an end to this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine that you say what problems we have?
I have.
So here's the other thing. Zelensky, and again, I'm just looking at the body language here. So if you're looking at the body language, you can tell that Zelensky, this is where his arms are crossed. Okay, so he's on the defensive. So you can tell, right? And then Donald Trump has his hands down, like kind of like this. It's just like, I'm just trying to make a deal. Like, you know what I mean? So pay attention to the body language. But the reality is, I think that Zelensky has some nerve after we've given him billions and billions of dollars and weapons, including in one of those packages. Don't forget there was health care that was included in the packages to Ukraine when everybody doesn't have health care in this country. So don't forget about that. The things that were given to them. To JD Vance's point, he is correct about the fact that they are pulling men off the street, throwing them into vans and making them go fight. The average age of the soldiers that they have, the people that they're basically self-drafting here, these people are in their 40s. And it's ridiculous. So to JD Vance's point, he's like, you don't have many people left. And Zelensky just wants to continue. What did I tell you guys before? Who really wants this war to continue? Zelensky wants to continue fighting. He wants to continue getting resources and money from the United States. And they lost $70 billion that they can't find. How do you lose track of $70 billion? So if you're not into foreign policy and you care about a lot about domestic issues, this is money and resources that should be used right here at home. That's what people have to understand. The money and the resources that has gone to Ukraine. We have people here that don't have homes. We have people here sleeping out on the street that don't have health care, that are sick, that are poor. And we're trying to take care of another country because Russia has become too powerful, according to the U.S. government, because we want Russia out of the mix. And you can add China to that as well. Economically, they're an issue for the U.S. government, and militarily, they're an issue for the U.S. government.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems bringing people into your military? And do you think that it's respectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
A lot of questions.
So the part about this that's really interesting is Trump just turns and looks at Zelensky kind of like, yeah, what do you think about that? Like, you know what I mean? Like JD Vance is being a little bit more aggressive here. And also, I think this is the part some people didn't see either. Right. So let's continue.
Let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
First of all, during the war, everybody has problems. Even you, but you have nice ocean. and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God
You
bless.
You don't know that.
God bless.
You don't
God
know that.
bless. You
Don't-
will not have
gotta-
a war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't.
So that part right there was I was surprised Zelensky said that when he said, you have nice ocean, but you're going to feel it soon. Whoa, 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 whoa. You come to us and you ask us for money. You come to us and you ask us for weapons. And under Biden, you've been getting them. This is the first time I see where you arrive and it looks like you're not getting no weapons and you're not getting any more money. And it just comes off as really ungrateful. That's the way that I took this. Is like, dude, we've given you billions and billions of dollars. Who are you talking to? So now he tries to turn the threat to us and tries to basically fearmonger Americans. Oh, you guys have this ocean, but you will feel the pain soon. Isn't that interesting? Also, I noticed he showed up to the White House again without a suit. Why are you going to the White House with no suit? This is not a pick on Zelensky thing. I say the same thing about John Fetterman, who also walks around wearing a hoodie. I'm like, no, well, what? Come on. Let's be more professional here. Let's go on.
Tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because
I'm
you're in no
answering on this
position to
question.
dictate that.
That's exactly
Remember
what
this.
you're doing.
I'm not
You're in
dictating.
no position to dictate what we're going to feel.
You
We're
will-
going to feel very
you will
good.
feel influenced.
We're going to feel very
I'm
good and
telling
very
you,
strong.
You will feel influenced.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed
From the
yourself
very-
to be in a
from
very
the very
bad position,
beginning
and
of
he
the
happens
war.
to be right about
From the
it.
very beginning of the war.
You're not
Mr.
in a good
Brown,
position.
I was
You don't have the
saying,
cards right now. With us, you start having
not playing
cards.
cards.
Right now, you
I'm
don't.
very
Yeah, you're playing
serious,
cards.
Mr. President.
You're
I'm
playing
very
cards.
serious.
You're
I'm
gambling
the
with the
president
lives
in
of
war.
millions of people.
You think-
You're gambling with World War
What you're-
III.
what you're
You're
speaking
gambling
about.
with
What you're
World
speaking
War
about.
III.
That part right there, I think, is the one that really hit home. And Zelensky looks somewhat embarrassed here. But again, like I know a lot of people are upset with Trump about this. Like, I just kind of felt like, okay, yeah, the decorum maybe could have been different. Some people said they felt like they weren't supposed to be privy to this conversation. I can totally get that. At the same time, I don't know how else you get through to Zelensky, because like I said, as you saw, the conversation did not start off that way, but he's just still like, he still want to go out there and fight and still give us money and all this types of jazz. Yes, you are threatening with World War III. And he's right when he says you are not in a position to make, you're not. You're getting most of your resources from us. So no, you're not. And you don't have the manpower to beat Russia. You just don't. That's just the reality. This is something that Biden should have said. Should have said this to Zelensky, but he didn't want to because he wanted to keep the war going. Now, to this point, the same way that Trump is speaking to Zelensky here is the same way that he should have spoken to Benjamin Netanyahu. Same thing. Should have had the same gusto and that same type of energy towards Benjamin Netanyahu and say, no, you're not doing this. You're not doing that. It's over. This is done. But of course, you know, that's not going to happen because the US government and these politicians bend over backwards for Israel because they're bought and paid for. So I see a lot of people on Twitter that have been cheering this on. But don't forget, there's another war that's happening as well, and he does not take that same type of behavior with Benjamin Netanyahu.
And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country, that's
with
back
all
to
respect to
you,
your
far
country.
more than a lot of people said
very
they
respect.
should have.
Have you said thank you once? This
A lot
entire
of
meeting?
times.
No, in this
Even
entire meeting,
today.
have you said thank
Even
you?
today.
You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States of America and the president who's trying to save your country.
Please, you think that if you will speak very loudly about the war, you
He's
can...
not speaking loudly. He's not speaking loudly. Your country is in big trouble.
Can I
Wait a
answer?
minute. No,
Can
you've
I
done a lot
answer?
of talking. Your country is in big trouble.
I know.
You're not
I
winning.
know.
You're not winning this. you have a damn good chance of coming out okay because of us.
Mr. President, we are staying in our country, staying strong from the very beginning of the war. We've been alone, and we are thankful. I said thanks
you haven't
in
been
this
alone.
cabinet,
You
and
haven't
not
been
only
alone.
in this cabinet.
We gave you, through this stupid president, $350 billion.
You voted
we gave
for
you
your
military equipment, and your men are brave, but they had to use our military.
What about
if you
So this gets very catty here, but the $350 billion, but they don't want to give everybody here health care. This is why I tell you, when they say that they don't have the money, they do have the money. It's just going towards war. That's where a lot of the money goes. Don't forget what MLK said, right? The crimes of the empire abroad always come back home. So think about that, folks. But they're in trouble. Ukraine is in trouble. And the thing that kills me is I'm actually seeing people who are Democrats who don't want the war to end. There are Democrats out there on social media that have basically become like neocons now. They want to keep the war going. If you care any inkling about the Ukrainian people, you would want this war to end. They're not going to win this, and more people are dying. It's just a mess. So ask yourself, do you actually care about the Ukrainian people being able to live? Or are you just being loud because you have Trump derangement syndrome?
You didn't have our military equipment. If you didn't have our military equipment, this war would have been over in 2 weeks.
In 3 days, I heard it from Putin. In 3 days. This is something
maybe
new.
Less.
In 2 weeks, of course, yes.
It's going to be a very hard thing to do business like this.
Again,
I tell you.
just say thank you.
I said a lot of times to American people.
Accept that there are disagreements, and let's go litigate those disagreements rather than trying to fight it out in the American media when you're wrong. We know that you're wrong.
But you see, I think it's good for the American people to see what's going on.
I understand, sir.
I think it's very important. That's why I kept this going so long. You have to be thankful. You don't have the cards. You're buried there. Your people are dying. You're running low on soldiers. Listen, you're running low on soldiers. It would be a damn good thing. And then you tell us, I don't want a ceasefire. I don't want a ceasefire. I want to go and I want this. Look, if you could get a ceasefire right now, I tell you, you take it so the bullets stop flying and your men stop getting killed.
Of course, we want to stop the war.
But you're saying you don't want a ceasefire.
But I said to you,
I want a ceasefire.
With guarantees.
Because you'll get a ceasefire faster than an agreement.
Ask our people about ceasefire, what they think.
That wasn't
it doesn't
with
matter
me.
For you what.
I think the people in Ukraine are tired of being pulled off the street to go fight this war. When he says, what do the people think? I think the people, mothers in Ukraine, are probably tired of having to worry whether or not their son is going to be forced to go fight this war that they cannot win. I don't know how to explain this to people, but this is a money laundering scheme. You know they can't win. Never forget what Julian Assange said. The goal is not necessarily to win the war. The goal is to funnel and laundry money. That's what this is really about. And at what cost? How many people die because of it?
Wasn't with me. That was with a guy named Biden, who was not a smart person. That was with Obama.
It was your president.
Excuse me. That was with Obama, who gave you sheets, and I gave you javelins.
Yes.
I gave you the javelins to take out all those tanks. Obama gave you sheets. In fact, the statement is Obama gave sheets and Trump gave javelins. You got to be more thankful, because let me tell you, you don't have the cards. With us, you have the cards. But without us, you don't have any cards.
One more question to Mr. Vice President. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so very, very tense discussion there. And the other thing is, too, again, it's the quiet part out loud. I told you guys before, Trump doesn't seem to have a filter. And, some people look at this and they say that's not professional. And I get it. The decorum could be better. At the same time, though, maybe that's what Zelensky needed to hear. And in that tone. Now, apparently Zelensky was kicked out, after this, was kicked out of the White House.
It'll be a tough deal to make, because the attitudes have to change.
What if Russia breaks ceasefire? What if Russia breaks peace talks? What do we do then? I understand that it's a heated conversation right now.
What are you saying?
She's asking, what if Russia breaks the ceasefire?
What if anything? What if a bomb drops on your head right now? Okay? What if they broke it? I don't know. They broke it with Biden because Biden, they didn't respect him. They didn't respect Obama. They respect me. Let me tell you, Putin went through a hell of a lot with me. He went through a phony witch hunt where they used him and Russia. You ever hear of that deal? That was a phony Hunter Biden, Joe Biden scam. Hillary Clinton, Shifty Adam Schiff. It was a Democrat scam. And he had to go through that. And he did go through it. We didn't end up in a war. And he went through it. He was accused of all that stuff. He had nothing to do with it. It came out of Hunter Biden's bathroom. It came out of Hunter Biden's bedroom. It was disgusting. And then they said, oh, the laptop from hell was made by Russia. The 51 agents. The whole thing was a scam. And he had to put up with that. He was being accused of all that stuff. All I can say is this. He might have broken deals with Obama and Bush, and he might have broken them with Biden. He did, maybe. Maybe he didn't. I don't know what happened. But he didn't break them with me. He wants to make a deal. I don't know if you can make a deal. The problem is, I've empowered you to be a tough guy. And I don't think you'd be a tough guy without the United States. And your people are very brave. But you're either going to make a deal or we're out. And if we're out, you'll fight it out. I don't think it's going to be pretty, but you'll fight it out. But you don't have the cards. But once we sign that deal, you're in a much better position. But you're not acting at all thankful. And that's not a nice thing. I'll be honest, that's not a nice thing.
Yeah, so that was the conversation there, ladies and gentlemen. I think Zelensky's upset because his meal ticket is over. You will also see the expression of the Ukrainian ambassador during this conversation because she knew. She's like, oh my God, this is not good. She knew.
I want to see her because you get a ceasefire faster than an agreement. Ask our people about ceasefire.
She knew. She was like, this is not going to work. Like she knew Zelensky had fumbled there. Again, you can disagree with Trump's decorum, but apparently it wasn't enough to scare Zelensky away permanently because from what I understand, he tried to come back. Everybody listen to this. He was trying to come back to the White House.
Mr. President, how long do you think it will take for Zelensky to want peace and be invited back to the White House?
Well, he says he wants it now. He wants to come back right now, but I can't do that.
Are you going to end? Mr. President, how long do you think it will take for Zelensky to want peace and be invited back to the White House?
Well, he says he wants it now. He wants to come back right now, but I can't do that.
Yeah, so it sounds like he wanted to come back, but Trump said that he couldn't do it. I don't know, could have been conflict of interest. I don't know. Maybe he had something else that was going on. But the reality is, I mean, sometimes you need to see things pretty cutthroat. And I thought that conversation was very cutthroat. And I kind of had a similar impression. I felt like Zelensky was not behaving in a thankful way. I mean, all this money that went to you, and then it's like you come back and it's like you're making demands of us and telling us like what we need to do and trying to fearmonger us and all these types of things. And it's just, no, he's not in a position to do that right now. So hopefully this war can come to an end. But man, that was an intense conversation. Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.